How does loving yourself, how does it actually teach you to finally begin that journey of like true self-love?
So I believe that, the relationship with yourself is the template, is the blueprint for every other relationship, and how you love yourself. And this is a quote I actually once read by Rupi Kaur, and she said that how you love yourself is how you teach other people to love you. So when you say no to things, you're teaching people what your boundaries are. When you are prioritizing your needs, you're prioritizing yourself, you're teaching other people that you value yourself. You are important. You are setting your own worth. You're setting your own value. And you're telling other people, well, this is who I am. And this is how I want to be treated. And so if you walk around thinking of yourself as this goddess or like this catch, that someone would be incredibly lucky to have you in their life, then that's how your partner's going to feel about you.
Are you looking for love? Have you ever wondered how to magnetically attract your soulmate? Or maybe you're just on a relationship detox. Wherever you are at, my guest today is going to blow you away. This is Sanaiyah Gurnamal, and she is on a mission to empower women successful in work, but also frustrated with love, to activate the power of self-love and create a love-centered life. I feel like a lot of times as ambitious women, when we are single looking for love, we sometimes feel like it's not meant for us. Can you break that down or take us through that whole journey?
Absolutely. And I love that you said that you wish you had this content a long time ago, because I almost write my content to my younger self because I was there. I was one of those women who on the outside, it looked like everything was great and perfect and I had this wonderful life and I was confident, but inside I was a total mess. So I write for that person. I also find that most of us don't really understand what self-love is. We kind of get the self-care, and we do a pretty good job of self-care when we intend to. But the self-love is something that is so subtle. It's definitely more of a mindset than an action that you take. And I feel like just understanding what self-love is and starting to infuse more of that into your life will help you make completely different decisions, will help you feel differently about yourself and others. And that's why it is something that I feel so passionately about.
Okay, so yes, you just kind of segued into what I wanted to bring up and talk about. Can we dispel a little bit about self-care, self-care bubble baths and all of the memes that kind of trend around self-care and the self-care movement versus actual self-love?
Yeah. So for me, self-care is important. It's definitely something that makes you feel good when you need it, when you turn to it. But self-love is more about being there for yourself. It's about being there when you need it, not I'll do it later, or I'll focus on everybody else and then I come last on my list. And so self-love is really about having that understanding with yourself that this is what I need in this moment. Or no matter what, I can serve myself and serve other people, or I can love myself and show up for other people. Because I feel like often it's a kind of a conflict. It's me versus the world.
Yeah.
And for me, it shouldn't be that way. There is a win-win situation. Everybody should be able to love themselves and still do things for the people that they care about, which is important and does bring us joy. But it is no replacement for kind of connecting with yourself, understanding, why do I react this way? Why am I triggered? Why am I making this choice? Why am I not making that choice?
Yeah.
And that comes from understanding yourself, building trust with yourself. Often we don't even trust the choices we make. We don't trust how we're going to react in a situation. Or we don't trust that we can take care of ourselves if another relationship happens and we get hurt again. And so we create all these different situations, scenarios to avoid being in situations where we don't trust ourselves to survive it or to handle it.
So is it a certain personality type that does this, or are you saying that it's kind of all of us that do it subconsciously?
I think all of us subconsciously do it on some level or the other. I think it is also kind of society has taught us that it's always more acceptable, or it is better to focus on other people. We have this whole idea of sacrificing yourself for others, for example.
Especially in the East.
Especially in the East, especially in the culture that I come from. It's always about other people. And almost if you're going to focus on yourself, it's selfish, right? And so people grow up feeling bad about doing anything for themselves. They feel guilty. They feel it's wrong, right? It's always about the greater good. It's always about, the family, the community, other people, even at work, every situation, you're always thinking about other people. And at the end of the day, you're neglecting yourself, which makes you feel drained and exhausted and resentful and angry. And, you can't be feeling all those things and helping other people. So it's kind of like working against you in so many aspects.
And how did Project Loving Yourself, how did that all come to be?
Yeah. So, the crazy thing is I've been doing this work for more than a decade. I started in Dubai. I had a well-being center.
No way.
Yeah. And I moved to the Philippines. I met my soulmate, moved there, got married, started another well-being center there, had kids, all of that. And I've been doing this work for a while. And I've been really reluctant to kind of open myself up to the rest of the world, just because I think I struggled for a good part of my life. I think up until my 30s, relationships were really tough. Many aspects of my life were a struggle.
Like love relationships?
Relationships.
Okay.
Oh my God, I had really the worst relationships. History, I'm sure you can relate, but a lot of pain, a lot of being on an emotional roller coaster, the wrong kind of relationships. Every time I was in love with somebody, they didn't like me back. And if they loved me, I was like, this is not for me. So it was always a mismatch, a lot of tears, a lot of drama, all of that. And so I pretty much gave up on love. And I said, I am going to dedicate my life to, my work, to the center, to well-being, to healing, all kinds of different modalities that were calling to me at that time. And I thought that was pretty much going to be how life goes, where it's just me, because I had some really painful, traumatic experiences over time that made me feel like, maybe I'm better off on my own.
Yeah.
Okay. But, everything took a big turn in my life when I started doing the work and I started owning and taking responsibility for everything that was happening in my relationships. And I realized it's not them, it was me. I kept thinking that I would attract men, like the bad boys, right? The ones who never wanted to commit.
Oh, you were the bad boy
I
kind
was
of
the bad
girl?
boy
Okay.
kind of girl.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
always had my heart broken, always chasing the wrong guy, right?
Were you the fixer as well?
I was also the fixer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they would change for me.
Don't we all?
Right?
Don't we all?
And it was a pretty big wake-up call when I realized, hey, it's not them. It's me. And it wasn't them with the commitment issue. It was me, because I was afraid of love. And I was so afraid of love that I would constantly attract the wrong kind of person, just to tell myself, hey, look, this is why you don't want to be in a loving relationship, because it always goes bad. There's going to be pain. You're never going to be happy. And so I kept reinforcing this notion that love was something I had to avoid at all costs. Though consciously, I had my picture of happily ever after, and, I was such a romantic, and, I loved all those kind of rom-coms with those happy endings, and secretly wished it would happen to me. But it didn't for a very long time. But it was when I realized that, oh my God, it's not them, it's me. And it goes way back. It goes back to things that I observed or witnessed in childhood. It goes back to people that I've grown up around. It goes back to all my broken-hearted relationships. And there was a lot to unpack. But it was very empowering to realize that it wasn't something that I couldn't control, because it was me all along.
Oh.
And that was the wake-up call. Right?
And that's huge. It's so
That's huge.
easy because we, and of course we have, some of my girlfriends are probably listening to this today, and we have girlfriends who either, and some of you Brave Table fam, you can relate totally, because either you're in it or you're going through it, or somebody that's going through it, but they keep going through the same kind of cycle.
Right.
attracting the same type of relationship. And I love it when they say, well, I want somebody, and they do all the physical attributes, and then they get somebody with all of the things that they physically want. And then it ends up being the same disaster and the same kind of play out as it always has been. And it's not until we're actually starting to, like you say, take that personal responsibility, kind of say, actually, oh, wait, I'm the problem.
Right. I'm the common denominator in every relationship that fell apart, right? And it's always like that pattern that keeps repeating. And sometimes it's really obvious and sometimes it's very subtle. You don't see it. And someone who can kind of see that bigger picture can show you, wait, you've actually been doing the same relationship. It might look different. It's packaged differently, but it's the same kind of, I call it a negative relationship template. You're just repeating that story over and over again, and you always end up feeling the same way. Not good enough, insecure, you want to give up, it's hopeless, or you feel taken advantage of, betrayed. There's always something that keeps happening, even though the relationships might be just a little bit different from one to another.
So, okay, so somebody's listening to this now. And how do we begin the work? What is the first thing that somebody can start doing? Even something, maybe just, it's like the littlest thing that somebody can do to begin their journey to maybe to heal.
Right. The first step is always reflection, right? It's looking back. I have a program where I actually make people do a relationship inventory. And this is something you can kind of do on your own, is reflect back to every relationship, list them down, okay? How did it end? Was there something in common with all of them? Did you feel a certain way? Or were there characteristics in every person you dated that somehow, there's something similar about them? And then kind of reflect back. Where did I experience that before? When did that maybe start? So really just reflecting and zooming out, because usually we're in the relationship, right? We're in the drama. We're in the pain. We're in the heartbreak.
We're so in it.
Right?
We're so in it.
You can't see it
And
for
you
what
can't,
it is.
and you can't see it. And I feel like, because what you're sharing, it's like totally reminding me. I remember a moment, and it was almost immediately after I left. It was a haphazard, like full kind of a Bollywood crazy drama of me, leaving in the middle of the night, of a very toxic situation of a relationship. And I remember I was, of course, afraid of a lot of things. What will people think? If this person was going to find me, all of these things. But I felt like I had reached such a low that finally, when I was in a place by myself, I was like, okay, I need to do something. And I remember just grabbing like a piece of paper, and it was probably one of those, like, it was like crumpled up, and I'm like, I need to just start doing this. And I just started writing, and I was like, okay, I need to kind of go into like, what was I doing with this particular relationship? What was good? What was bad? So it's almost kind of like your relationship inventory, but I was like going back and back and back. And I'm like, oh, there's this person. And then there's my, college boyfriend, who I thought was really great. Well, what were the things that I liked about this college boyfriend? Oh, and then the high school boyfriend. Oh, and then the other high school boyfriend. And then, the one before that. And so it was like going back and tracing these patterns. And then I'm like, oh, wait, they're kind of similar to my dad. Is it crazy? Oh my gosh. Yeah. And of course, my dad's spirit is always around, but he had a whole, because he passed when I was 19, but he had a very distinct charm, charisma, behavior. Yeah. And I'm not saying, Brave Table fam, this is going to be your experience, but I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah. To be able to sit and actually reflect and do the work. And this was just kind of like, I just needed to like write. Right. And finally like put everything down on paper. And then of course I got all of these books on, this is way back, and I think I was going through my Saturn return. I was like 29.
Wow.
Or 28.
That's around the time that It happened to me too.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you too. Can you speak about that a little bit? Are you into astrology at all?
Well, I am into astrology because, I'm born Indian and it's kind of always around us. But at some point, I started to realize that there's kind of like the life astrology gave me based on, when I was born, time of birth, all of that.
Yeah.
And then there are choices that I make. And I remember having my chart read by a Vedic astrologer. This was around my late 20s. And she's like, oh my God, your life today doesn't look anything like it's supposed to be based on your chart, which means I made, specific intentional choices and I deviated from what would have been maybe the path that I was expected to take. And I have this crazy experience, and it might be a little woo-woo and a little bit kind of like out of it, but out of the conversation. But I feel like this is something. It was very special for me. So when I was at 29, I was at a retreat. We were working on inner child related stuff, and it was a retreat where I was working on myself, but I was also training to work on other people. And there was this point that we were on some kind of an excursion. So we weren't even in the healing part of the program. And here I am, I was like sitting on a bus. And I go into I meditate a lot. Like I do a lot of my inner work and meditation. I do healing work and so on. And so I connected to that kind of higher realm, you could call it, or just connected to the universal energy. And in that moment, I was guided to realign the stars at the point of my birth. And I'm sitting there being like, what? How do I even do that? And it sounds crazy. Can you even do that? What does that mean? But, I did have a very strong belief in, getting guidance, spiritual guidance, and so on. And so I said, okay, I'm going to follow whatever I'm being told to do. And I visualized myself in the middle of the universe. And I saw all kind of the stars and everything flip in my visualization, almost like everything was being reoriented at my time of birth, which was kind of like eerie and cool. I didn't know what was going on, but I was just following the guidance. And that was the first couple of days of June, okay? And a week later, I was scheduled to fly to the Philippines because my cousin from Hong Kong was marrying her boyfriend from Manila.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I hadn't been to the Philippines in a very long time, right? So here I am going to this like 4-day, Bollywood wedding.
Manila.
In Manila. In Cebu, actually. It's an island.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I've been to
So
Cebu.
it was like an island wedding. And so
Note to self, everyone, there's a lot of Indians that live in the Philippines, so this isn't uncommon.
Right.
Go ahead.
So I go to this wedding and I meet a guy there, okay, who is completely not what I'm looking for in a person. Because by then, I was really kind of into the work I was doing. He was like one of those center of attention, party guy. You could see that he was flirting with all the girls. Like kind of, I'd done the work to pick that one out and say, stay away.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But certain events happened and we ended up dancing all night. Okay, as you do at an Indian wedding, right? You just dance the whole night. So we ended up dancing all night, and he almost showed up as like my protector because there was a lot of like drunk men at the wedding, and he was kind of protecting me, which is weird because we didn't know each other. But there was this connection. 4 days later, I left the wedding. We were the only two people on the same bus going to the airport. Nobody else was on the bus with us.
Oh, wow.
And we continued to talk. I went back to Dubai, where I was living. He went back to Manila, where he was living. And all we did for the next couple of days was just talk through the night. And I tried to tell him, like, I'm not your type of girl. I'm really kind of a little into stuff that you, as someone from the Indian community, or, you're probably not used to it. I believe in the universe and, I can I'm psychic and blah, blah, blah. So I was telling him all these things. I'm trying to push him away because I'm like, in my head, he's not the kind of guy for me. He's not what I'm looking for. Plus, I was still dealing with like commitment issues. I'd been working through all of that. Anyways, a week later, I got this, again, intuition in my meditation that I'm going to marry him. I barely know him for a week, but it was like, I'm going to marry him and I can date him and get to know him, or I can just accept that this is the guy I'm going to marry, which is kind of crazy at that point. So we continued to talk. A month later, he flew down. He proposed.
A month later.
A month later.
Oh my goodness.
We had spent, all of like maybe 10 days with each other.
Wow.
And I'm 29, so I've had my share of relationships. I've had some very long relationships. I've had some short ones too. But, it's not something that I would do, just say yes after knowing someone for that short a time. But I was so sure that this was the person I was going to be with. I knew it. And I had done all the work to give me that confidence. And that was it. I said yes. We got married 5 months later. We've been together 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you have children now
We have
as well.
3 children.
You have 3 kids.
We have 3 kids. And
Oh my
honestly, it is the kind of relationship I've never had in my life. It's like it breaks every single pattern I ever had, And for me, that manifestation, because I actually did a soulmate manifestation February 14th, a couple of months before all this played out.
You did?
I did.
Okay.
And I did it as a joke. I didn't think it would actually happen. But look, everything got orchestrated in such a way that really I was ready. I had been doing the work for some time before that. And I was very clear on what I wanted. And I had healed all my past relationship baggage. So when I did meet my husband, I was really coming into the relationship feeling very complete, very healed. Okay.
That you weren't needing him.
I was not needing him. In fact, I was trying to push him away. So that's how much I didn't need him, right? And when I knew that this is the one I'm going to be with, it was just a complete sense of peace because it was like, yeah, of course. This is the most right relationship I've ever been in. So there was no doubt. There was no I've never second guessed or had to look back and say, did I make the right decision? It's always been the right decision. And if there's one area of my life, Neeta, that I don't worry about, I don't really stress about, it's love, it's relationships, because I feel like I went through that process. And it's a process that I now repeat with a lot of my clients, which is you have to release, the past. You have to understand it. You have to unpack it. Do things like the inventory, clear your inner child, do the healing, understand yourself better. What has made you who you are? And instead of hiding from it, rejecting it, running away from it, embrace it. Embrace all those scars and wounds because they make you this amazing person that you are today. And I don't think we celebrate that enough.
I don't think we do. And I feel like everybody who's listening to this and even watching this are like, oh, she did have a happily ever after.
I did.
But I think it also comes with your ability to alchemize a lot of the pain, alchemize a lot of the scars into beautiful tattoos and so on. And I actually want to know, how does loving yourself and the process you take people through in your programs, even in your one-on-ones, how does it actually teach you to finally begin that journey of true self-love?
Yeah. So I believe that, the relationship with yourself is the template, is the blueprint for every other relationship, and how you love yourself. And this is a quote I actually once read by Rupi Kaur, and she said that how you love yourself is how you teach other people to love you. So when you say no to things, you're teaching people what your boundaries are, right? When you are prioritizing your needs, you're prioritizing yourself, you're teaching other people that you value yourself. You are important. Right? You are setting your own worth. You're setting your own value. And you're telling other people, well, this is who I am. And this is how I want to be treated. And so if you walk around thinking of yourself as this goddess or like this catch, that someone would be incredibly lucky to have you in their life, then that's how your partner's going to feel about you. And I think that, something I saw in my own relationship, that I grew from someone who had no self-love, right? No self-esteem, even though I was like one of those popular girls, right? I had a ton of friends. I was always like partying through college. I was the one who I always had a ton of friends. I always had people around me. I never knew how to be alone, right? Because I didn't like myself very much. I didn't feel good about myself. But you would never know. From the outside, I looked like someone who was really happy. And I think that's the dichotomy most of us face is on the outside, we have a very different kind of projection than what's truly going on inside of us.
And I love that you're sharing about this idea of actually being alone, because I think for the cultures that we grew up in, it's very hard to actually do that because you're constantly surrounded by family, friends, parties, obligations, obligatory hangouts, etc.
Yeah.
And so I can so relate to even, the various stages in my life where I feel like, oh, being the extrovert, it's easy.
Yeah.
Until actually, it's not. And when you're alone, you have to really confront some of those demons.
Yeah.
You have to confront how you actually really feel about yourself. And I wanted to kind of double click on, because you shared to be able to, do the work to heal past relationships. What if, because we've got our serial friends who they serial date, and they end one relationship and they go on to the next and they find somebody right away.
Yeah.
And I used to be this way. I used to overlap and date and serial date and overlap. And I never had like they would overlap. They basically wouldn't, one would almost be fizzling out and I would just start the process again.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the women listening to this are, there's some of them are in that boat. What is the detriment, if any, to date in this way?
Yeah. We do it, right? Because we feel so crappy after breakup that we want to feel good about ourselves again, right? Except all you're doing is you're packing your relationship closet, you're cluttering it with all kinds of emotions and, unresolved relationships, baggage. I mean, this is the baggage that you end up carrying relationship to relationship. And you don't realize, you don't take the time to pause and reflect, like, am I just going into another relationship, which is a repeat of my previous relationship? And that's what you do because we tend to gravitate towards what is familiar, to what we know. And so these rebound relationships or just hopping from one to another is just, that's all you're doing is you're on repeat mode. Right? And you end up feeling the same negative feelings. They don't go away, they pile up, and suddenly you've got a closet full of just almost stuff that is completely overwhelming you. It is making you feel just unloved, unwanted, unhappy, right? All of this stuff starts to get created when you don't take the time to get closure. And when I say closure, I don't mean you need to go and have closure with the other person, after every relationship, but you need to have that inner closure. You need to process because, you need to grieve a relationship, right? Because you lost something. You lost a hope. You might have felt at that point that this could have been your forever person, right? You have to grieve that. You have to understand why it didn't work out. You have to apply the lessons because you've grown. But if you don't take the time to acknowledge the growth, then it kind of gets lost on you, right? And so that's why it's so important, and I call that the relationship detox, is to detox from your previous relationships before you bring all that unwanted stuff into your next relationship, right?
This is so good. I feel like you're clearing the closet, the relationship closet. And we all need a detox every once in a while. But I love that you said that to be able to take the highs and the lows from the relationship. And these are kind of like our little nuggets and our gems.
Yeah. The good and the bad, because both of them teach us a lot, right? The trauma, the pain, but also the really good times, right? The celebration. And so we're always running away from the negative, from the bad, from the pain. But sometimes that's where your greatest strength, lies in just accepting that, allowing it, embracing it.
So good. So good. Okay. I wanted to unpack one more piece of kind of this journey that we've been on, our relationship journey, as this theme has been, of how do we deal with our own subconscious self-sabotage that tend to come up.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest problem for a lot of women is they might have worked through some of their past baggage, but where they get stuck is all these subconscious fears that they aren't aware of.
It's like, when is the other shoe going to drop?
Exactly.
When is he going to reveal his true colors? Yeah. Or, I need to check his phone, or I need to check their phone because, I don't know. It's too good.
Yeah.
It's too good to be true.
Something has to go wrong, right? Because sometimes we're more afraid of being happy. We're more afraid of being in a relationship than not being in one, right? Because it's harder and it brings back all those memories or all those situations. And often it'll bring back unresolved childhood trauma, because most of our relationship patterns go back to things that we might have seen in our parents' marriage or in people that were close to us. And those were basically our first impressions, our understanding of what a relationship looks like. And so sometimes we are trying to run away from that, we're avoiding it, or we're afraid we're just going to recreate it. And so the subconscious patterns are the trickiest ones, Neeta, because they're the ones that we bury so deep. We don't want to visit that. We don't want to know about it, right? Because it's so uncomfortable to think about all these horrible things that could happen, right? But that's also the key to breaking free of them, is to understand this is what I'm afraid of, and then what's going to happen. And then what's the worst that's going to happen? And just walking yourself through that worst case scenario and being like, wait, I think I can handle it. I'll know what to do. And I actually put people through an exercise in one of my programs, which is, what's your biggest fear about relationships? Now, pretend it happened, okay? And walk through it in your mind that this happened. Okay, so you're afraid your partner cheats on you, okay? Now imagine it's going to happen. Now what are you going to do? What are you going to say? How are you going to handle it? Because often we're fearful of what we don't know, right? Like, we don't know what could happen and how we're going to react. And that uncertainty kind of aggravates the fear that's already existing. So just kind of saying, okay, well, I would do this, or I could do this, or this is how I could handle it, and this is what I would do. And that already creates a sense of comfort, a sense of empowerment, that I do have a choice. There are things that I can do, right? I'm not like a victim of a situation, but there's some steps I could take, right? And then suddenly you realize, well, maybe there's more to this story. Maybe I've created the situation, and how can I take more responsibility and make sure right now I don't end up there? So the sense of empowerment comes in as you conquer your fears just by facing them, by confronting them, right? And so I feel that if we were more open to that understanding of what's going on beneath the surface, if we allowed ourselves to venture into those areas that we're afraid of, that in itself brings a lot of awareness and understanding and power, a lot of power back into that relationship.
And it's so juicy to be able to get in there.
Yeah. And most of the time, when we get to the end of the fear, it's like, oh, I guess it's not that bad after all, right?
It's not so bad.
It's not so bad.
I learned a few things about myself.
Yeah.
I can communicate better. And yeah, no, this is so great. I wanted to get into our spilling the chai section. It's a little bit on hot takes. And before I do that, I know you have a gift for our audience. So please tell us, what is that?
So I have something that is specifically for your audience. It's called the Relationship Detox Program.
Love it.
It is a 5-step process to ditch the past and embrace your future. So I basically take you through 5 steps where we do the cleaning up of the past, the letting go. We do the closure aspect with a ritual. We work on resentments, grudges, forgiveness. We work on learning the lesson so you don't have to hold on to the pain. So it's basically a process of taking you through that decluttering of the relationship closet. And it's something that's quite easy to do, and yet it can be very profound. There's a lot of, realizations, a lot of aha moments that a lot of people who've gone through that program have shared with me. And so it is something that you can do in the comfort of your own home. It's a program online. And if your listeners go onto the link, it's
What is it?
It's bit.ly /relationship detox now, and you can share that.
Perfect. I will actually put that in the show notes.
Thank you.
As well as you have a self-love quiz Okay. And if you wanted to manifest love.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a program called Soulmate Magnet where I take single women who are really just exhausted of being in the wrong relationship, or not at all, because some of us don't want to be in any relationship because we're afraid of love, right? And so I take you through an 8-week journey, a process. This is something that I do as a group program, a group coaching program, but also a one-on-one program with me. So you have 2 ways of doing it. And I take you through a process of really letting go. So the first step is releasing the past. Step 2 is learning to completely love and accept yourself and your circumstances and where you are today. And step 3 is really creating and attracting that future that you want. Because unless you get to step 1 of letting go and then getting to a point where you completely love and accept yourself, you can't really manifest what you want. Your vibration is not there yet. But when you go through that process in that order, I find that you raise your frequency, you get a lot of clarity on what you do want and what you don't want, and you're really able to kind of send that call, that invitation out. And many of my clients and students have, in almost very effortless stories like mine, met their soulmates, and it's been just a beautiful process, a journey of self-love more than anything. But the cherry on top is you also do manifest your soulmate when you get to that point.
Ooh. Yeah. And that is the sweet juice. Where can we follow you and learn more about everything?
So I'm on Instagram at Sanaiyah Gurnamal, and definitely sign up for the program. That is probably the best way to kind of see what I do, get a feel for it, dip your feet in the water. And if you are interested in finding your soulmate, then that is something that I love to do for people, just because my own story was something just that changed my life completely.
I mean, I was getting goosebumps when you were sharing it. So.
Yeah, and every day I wake up and I'm like, I'm so grateful for what I have. And I really feel, because I remember how painful it was, how hopeless it was, and how I was just like, I'm never going to meet that right person. And I'm getting older and there's no one out there. And, you deal with all those insecurities, and it doesn't help when other people are moving on and having kids and you're like the one single person in your group, or like, you have to make new friends because there's no one single in your circle anymore. It's just, your self-esteem takes a hit. It's really hard to love yourself when you're dealing with that kind of noise. So I really, really feel so committed to helping people find the kind of love that I did.
So beautiful. Well, everyone, I definitely want you to take advantage of Sanaiyah's offerings and go ahead and follow her. But before we end, let's get you and spill the chai. All right, our little hot take section is all about some quick questions. And all right, so it could be as long as you want, as short as you want. Now, relationship-wise, J-Lo style, or Taylor Swift style?
J-Lo for sure.
Morning ritual or evening ritual?
Ooh, I do both, but morning.
Okay. Is it like anyone is longer than the other or shorter? Or?
It's just, how I feel.
Okay.
At different points.
Okay. Same affirmations daily or different ones?
Different ones.
Is there such thing as too much empathy for friends that are still single?
I think that there can be attachment and trying to fix people that you really care about. So sometimes that empathy turns into something else. And so you just have to be a little bit aware and just allow people to make their mistakes, to find their way, and just be their cheerleader, be in their corner, be there to support them without doing things like fixing it for them.
It's huge. Huge. The biggest thing that we could all learn. TikTok reels, which I love, by the way, but I love your IG reels. So which one?
IG reels.
All right. When you're rebounding, one night stand or friends with benefits?
Friends with benefits.
Okay. Your take on catfishing?
Ooh, not my cup of tea.
What gets you elevated these days?
Great energy from people. People I can just connect with, resonate with. People who just, their heart is open and you can feel that.
Well, this was lovely. Thanks for playing, Sanaiyah. And we will put everything in the show notes. My last question is, what do you think it means to be brave in this season and stage of life?
So I think for me, being brave is being fearless. It's diving into the messy parts of life, facing everything, even though it might feel hard and difficult, but just, say, I'm going to push forward because I know that I have the strength and the courage to do it. And I'm going to gain, I'm going to grow as a person. I'm going to be better every single day. And so bravery is just that fearlessness, the ability to kind of trust yourself and trust the universe that they've got your back and there's some higher power looking out for you and you're there for you too. That's bravery for me.
Amazing. You have so much wisdom and so much light and love in your heart. I can only see, and it's only so obvious why people run to all of your events and your programs. And it's such an honor to have you sit with us today on the Brave Table.
Thank you, Neeta. I actually am tearing up because I just feel like our conversation has been so honest, so real, and I know this is, something a lot of people need to hear. So thank you for giving me that space to share all of this. I really appreciate you.
Until next time on the Brave Table. OMG. Are you just in love with Sanaiyah? I mean, she dropped some amazing mic drop moments and some of those gems. So whether you needed to hear it or whether your friends needed to hear it, maybe you can share this episode along and pass this through a girlfriend, a sister, somebody that you love. And, it's never too late to start your healing journey. If you are healing after a breakup or maybe discovering yourself during this single era. I am so glad that we were able to bring her on the Brave Table this week. And if you want to get to know more about her work, go ahead to SanaiyahGurnamal.com. And it's actually also linked in the show notes. And her relationship detox is bit.ly, that's bit.ly/relationship detox now. Go ahead and put that in your browser, save it, or you can get it. The link is linked in the show notes this week. Follow her on TikTok, IG, YouTube, and Facebook at Sanaiyah Gurnamal. That's SanaiyahGurnamal. And if you want to dive even deeper into your relationship journey and exploration, we have some more juicy episodes linked in the show notes for you to just devour. Thank you so, so much for being here every week. We strive to give you so much more valuable content. And if this is your first time here, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you were able to experience this essence on the show. This is your oasis. And if you haven't already left a 5-star review, we would so love that. You can go ahead and drop your review and we'll send you a free gift if you send us a screenshot and email it to support@globalgrit.co. That is support@globalgrit.co. I will see you next time. Don't forget to be just a little bit more brave.